All right, Rip City Drive, what's going on, my friends? I appreciate your time on this Friday. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, the Godfather Dwight James is going to stop by. He wants to talk some NFL draft and share his thoughts on Travis Hunter, who is now with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and really how he's going to make it work by playing on both sides of the ball. So we'll talk with the Godfather. We're going to revisit a conversation with an all-time classic trailblazer, and we're going to have a good time. I'm looking forward to the weekend. The weather's nice. I mean, what more could we possibly ask for, man? This is what I'm talking about. All right, so NFL draft, a couple of things. First off, the big surprise to kick off the night was a trade between the Browns and the Jaguars, which landed Travis Hunter in Jacksonville. And with Travis Hunter, you know the big deal. He wants to play, but only for a team that's going to let him play on both sides of the ball. And I think I figured out how this is going to work. Look, I want to see Travis Hunter play on both sides of the ball. I just don't think he can do it in the NFL going full-time on both sides, offense and defense. I don't think it's physically possible. I don't think it's mentally possible. I think it's too emotionally draining, the whole shebang. And that's not to take anything away from Travis Hunter. He is a tremendous athlete, but he's only 6 foot, 188 pounds. And the way he was able to get that done at Colorado was by resting during the week, no practice. And that was smart for Coach Prime because it's like, hey, he's our best player. We need him on both sides of the ball, and we're going to try and win games, so we're going to rest him. He won't have to practice, and we can use him on both sides. But the difference is in college, when you're playing at Colorado, you're not facing the type of talent you do week in and week out in the NFL. The schedule is not as long as it is in the NFL, and the physicality is nowhere near the same. But the other issue is the practice. Practice in the NFL is critical because you're going up against sophisticated offenses and defenses. Everything is so precise in terms of game planning, execution, where you need to be on the field, the communication, the timing, all of it. Like, you can't make big errors in the NFL or you get exposed and you lose games. And when you lose games, people lose their jobs, and it's a big deal. So practice time is critical, but also during the week, players spend a ton of time, not on the practice field, but in meeting rooms with their position groups, going over film, going over the game plan, and talking about specifics. And I just don't think there's enough time in the week to where you could possibly be fully prepared via practice, in the film room, with the game plan, understanding these deep and complex playbooks to the level that you need to be able to execute in all situations. And the game plans week to week change dramatically based on matchup and opponent. So I just don't know if it can be done. If someone can do it, it would be Travis Hunter, but I think that would be difficult. So I think this is how I see it playing out. Like, if you're the Jags, you want to present yourself as open to anything. So you tell Travis, hey, we want you to play both ways, offense and defense. We want you to do it. We believe in you. We know you're a tremendous athlete. We drafted you because we want you to come in and be that type of difference maker. But I think they know in saying that he's not going to be able to do it. But you don't tell him that. You bring him in and let him start the process. And then because Travis Hunter's smart, he understands football, and he knows what it takes to perform and play at a high level, you let him arrive at that conclusion on his own. So you put him through camp. He's in practice. He's in the meeting rooms. He's going through the playbook. And then he realizes, like, whoa, it's much more. I thought it would be tough, but it's on a different level than I could have possibly imagined. And then from there, he recognizes that he won't be able to be at his best if he's overloaded mentally in preparation for each game because he's trying to absorb so much information for offense and defense. Not to mention the physical punishment. At 6 foot, 188 pounds, going up against, superior athletes or guys like himself, what type of physical punishment are you going to take playing on both sides? Physically, would you be able to take that type of punishment on a Sunday and be ready for practice the next week? And then you multiply that by 17 because you got 17 games on the schedule. No, let him arrive at the conclusion, and then you move on from there. That's how that needs to go down. And that's how I think it will go down. And then I keep going back to what Daniel Jeremiah said from NFL Network, that he'll major in offense at receiver, minor in defense. So what you do is you find packages in defense with your zone coverages and different spots where you can have him on the field to make a difference. If you got a high leverage situation, if you got a spot where you need someone on the field to make a play, then you do it. So you find the packages where he can assist on defense, but let him be a star on offense. But let him arrive at that conclusion himself when he realizes, like, okay, I thought that this was the path I wanted to take, but I'm not going to be at my best. So we're going to take this in a different route. And I think that's the way to do it. Now, with the Raiders, they were so fortunate with the finagling that went on in front of them. They just sat right there and took Ashton Jeanty. And this goes back to, I think I was having a conversation with Raider Mike yesterday. Pete Carroll is not looking to rebuild from scratch with youth. They went out and brought in Geno. They paid him money. He's a coach that knows how to get things on track in a hurry. And he's also a coach at the end of his career with only a few years remaining. So he doesn't have a lot of time. So if you have a coach like that loves coaching and wants to win and is ultra competitive, he's not looking to bring along youngsters and hopefully develop them. No, he's going to plug guys in who can help him win right away. And Ashton Jeanty is that guy. What does Pete Carroll like to do? He likes to run the football. What does Pete Carroll like to do with Geno Smith? He likes to run the ball and use play action. So what Pete Carroll is going to do is he's going to utilize Ashton Jeanty in big doses. Run the football, control the clock, put Geno Smith in a position to have success, and then we're going to protect the football. Ball security is big to Pete Carroll. So you run the ball, use play action, and you put your defense in a better position because they're getting rest, because you're having sustained drives. Geno Smith's in a better spot because he's got a guy in the backfield that he can throw the football to, that he can lean on in running situations, who's a big threat, and then it puts him in a better position because the defense is worried about the run game. So I really like the maneuver there for the Raiders to get Ashton Jeanty. He's going to be a star. He's going to be a bell cow. And what I'm hoping is that with the emergence of Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, that we're going to see this resurgence of the running back in the NFL. And I think that's going to be important, right? So that's how it's going to go down. But nice move. And I'm telling you, the Raiders, not my, shall we say, favorite team, but I do respect what they've done with bringing in Pete Carroll, because Pete Carroll brings organization. He'll lay a foundation. Guys are going to be smarter because he's coaching them, and you're going to see a much more competent football team on the field. Now, I just want to run this by you. When I first started watching the NFL, talking about running backs, it was back in 1986. That was my first full year of football where I became addicted. It was like, oh, yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but I need a lot more of this. But in 1986, just take a listen to the running backs who dominated the league at that time. Eric Dickerson led the NFL in rushing, 1,821 yards, followed by Gerald Riggs, Joe Morris with the Giants, Walter Payton, Kurt Warner with the Seahawks. He had 1,481 yards on 319 carries. George Rogers, Redskins, Reuben Mays with the Saints, James Jones with Detroit, Sammy Winder with the Broncos, Ernest Jackson, and the list goes on. But you talk about those big names and how many carries they got. 404 for Dickerson, 343 for Riggs, 341 for Morris, 321 for Peyton, 319 for Kurt Warner, and 303 for George Rogers. You see how the NFL has changed? You had bell cow running backs that would get the bulk of the carries, but over time, as the league's become more pass happy, teams have gotten away from, running the football and trying to establish the run and to be dominant in that department. But I think what's happening now is defenses have gotten smaller and faster to deal with the passing game. Now you're going to start to see some offenses self-correct and get more physical and try to run the football and take advantage of those mismatches. And when you run the ball well and you can stop the run and control the clock, you're going to be in a position to win a lot of games. If you protect the ball, don't turn it over, run the ball and stop the run, you're going to be right there in a position to get the job done. So look for Pete Carroll to run the heck out of Ashton Jeanty. And if I'm Ashton Jeanty, I'm pumped because not only did I get selected in the top 10 of the NFL draft, but I also am going to a team where I know the head coach is going to run the football. And when you're a running back and you know your coach is a guy that has the identity of running the football and being physical and taking advantage of those opportunities, you got to be jacked up. It's unbelievable. So major props to the Raiders for that maneuver. But those are the big things that jump out. No surprise at the top, Cam Ward is going to go to Tennessee. I like him. I like his story, and I hope he does well. And I'm excited to see what type of quarterback he becomes. And then we saw the usual suspects. The Giants got Abdul Carter. Love that pick because he's one of those guys that has a chance to be dominant and be a game changer. And now he can go in there, and the Giants didn't take a reach on a quarterback. They went with the sure thing. And if you're in a position where you need a quarterback, but you're not for sure that that quarterback's going to come in and be a change maker or a difference maker, then don't take a risk. Take the best player available. They got Abdul Carter. All right, we're going to keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. When we come back, the Godfather Dwight Jaynes is going to join the show. We're going to get his take on the draft. We'll talk about Travis Hunter and how that's going to work. I want to ask him about David Adelman and what he's seeing from him so far in the first round of the playoffs. What's been the biggest thing to jump out at him? And are Boston and Oklahoma City clearly the top two teams in the NBA that we're likely going to see in the NBA Finals? We'll touch on that with the Godfather. I want to share my thoughts on the NFL Draft, and we're going to hear from a special conversation with an ex-Trailblazer that was brought up on the golf course. And I got to thinking about it, and I want to hear from him. So I'm happy to be here. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Telephone number 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620, or you can reach out to me on social at Chad and Rip City. All right, let's do this. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, joining me now on the Rip City Drive, my good friend and a man who knows everything, wants to talk a little NFL draft. The Godfather, Dwight Jaynes, is back on the show. Godfather, a lot of different things to talk about here, but I want to start with the draft because I'm fascinated by the whole Travis Hunter discussion. The Browns selected him and then turned around and traded him to Jacksonville, and according to all reports, he is going to play both sides of the football. Now, I love Travis Hunter, and I think he's a tremendous athlete, and what he did in 2 years at Colorado is amazing, playing full-time on both sides of the ball. But I've been trying to figure out how this is going to work in the NFL. I mean, what's your initial take when you look at this situation with a guy who is 6 foot, 188 pounds, attempting to go both sides of the ball in the NFL?
Yeah, I share the same concerns as you, Chad. Actually, I think what really got me thinking down this line is the idea he's been telling people he's got to play both sides. He's adamant about that. And I guess that's fine, except I think that it's very possible after a training camp that team might have other ideas. And I don't know how he's going to be able to deal with that, if he will deal with that. I think he probably will, because there'll be some realities that he's going to find out right away. And I think the reality is that at 6 foot and 188 pounds, you're not playing against Weber State or somebody now. You got people out there who are going to hurt you if they can, and they're going to be coming after a rookie like they always do, and on both sides of the ball. Plus, no chance to rest if you're playing both sides of the ball. Now they're going to say at some point, we'll play him offensively, and then we'll spot him defensively. And I'm not even sure, Chad, that that's going to work, because it's real sophisticated on the defensive side now. There's a lot to learn. And even adjustments made during the game, he's not going to be in that huddle on the sidelines when the offense is on the field. He's going to be out there playing wide receiver. So it's going to be very difficult for him mentally and physically, I think, to handle both sides of the ball. And I think a lot of people in the media seem so enthralled with the whole unicorn thing that they don't realize. I mean, he wasn't the number one rated wide receiver this year, and he wasn't the number one rated corner. He's highly rated in both. But to think you're going to get both, I think, is a little bit of an illusion.
Well, Godfather, you've been covering sports a long time, and you know this as well as I do, that the reason why he was able to play both sides of the ball at Colorado is because he didn't practice during the week. They gave him the week off so he could have a chance to rest and be at full strength. And that was probably the right thing to do at Colorado because, with the competition you face, having him available, who is a tremendous athlete on both sides of the ball, that's a good thing to do. But in the NFL or in the NBA or any professional sport, like practice itself, you have 1 week to prepare for a game. And usually that's only a couple of days of practice because Mondays during the season are kind of a rest and recuperation day. John Harbaugh spoke about this last week. I've always wondered about not just the practice time, but those meetings based on the sophistication you talked about. These players spend hours and hours with their position group in meetings, going over film, going over the game plan, which you mentioned is so in-depth. I don't even know how you would have enough time in the week to be able to be fully prepared to play full time on both sides of the ball. And I'm not trying to limit him because he is a great athlete, but there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chad, and that's a great point, that the whole mental side of it is very difficult, even if you're playing one side of the ball, let alone two. And I think the one thing coaches do, they will put you on the field if they trust you. If they don't trust you, they won't put you on the field. And if they don't think that you're up to speed with all the schemes and everything they want to do, they won't put you on the field because they don't want you making a mistake that's going to cost you a game. And it's going to be very difficult for him to be up to par on both sides, really, if he tries to play both sides, let alone the physical stress of not having any time on the sidelines to recuperate. He's on the field all the time. Heck, in college, he was on the special teams all the time, returning kicks. And, you get away with that in college. I'd like to have seen him try to pull that off in the SEC or the Big Ten. I don't think he could have because of the nature of the physicality of those two leagues. I don't think he saw that. And I'm not so sure he's ready for what he's going to see in the NFL.
Well, I agree with your assessment. I think the smart way to play it is this. I think the Jaguars or any team in the NFL knows what we're talking about, that It's not physically, mentally, or emotionally possible at 6 foot, 188 pounds, or any size for that matter, to play full-time both sides in the NFL. So maybe what you do is say, hey, we'll play on both sides, knowing that after he goes through the process with an NFL team and the study time and the practice and the playing, he'll probably arrive at the conclusion himself and realize, you know what, I better focus on one side of the ball. And if you let him figure that out on his own, knowing that that's going to be the answer he'll come up with, then he'll arrive at it and say, you know what, I want to focus on this side or that side. And maybe that's the best way to do it, because if he arrives at the decision on his own, then he'll be happy with the result, right?
Absolutely. You're right on the spot, Chad. That's the way. Even teachers do that, and coaches at every level do that. It's much better to have the player come to the conclusion of what's best for him than you to have to continually tell him what's best for him. That doesn't always work. It doesn't work in the radio business even. You know, you kind of have to find out some things on your own, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm excited to see him play, and you know, I think the best way it was put, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah. He said, when talking about Hunter, he said he'll be a major in offense and he'll have a minor in defense, meaning he'll play receiver full time. And that's probably smart because he'll make more money and have a chance to have the ball in his hands. Yeah. But there are situations where you can have him, especially in zone situations, where he's really good at reading and reacting to what's going on. And if you can have a high leverage situation on third down or a key moment in a game and you're better on the field with him on there, you can use him defensively in a few packages to where it's going to make you a better football team without overexerting him, right? That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that's what it'll end up being if he can handle it. And that's the way it'll work, Chad. I don't have any doubt about that. He's really a talented player. There's no question. And I've always thought he was going to end up primarily on the offensive side of the ball, frankly, because that's where the money is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know a lot more about this than I do. But isn't that, I mean, he'd make more money being a premier wide receiver, right?
Yeah, because when you touch the ball, you have the numbers, you can show the touchdowns. And, of course, it's an offensive league. You're going to make more money. Receivers make more money. Even the top-paid corners for a guy in the league is not going to compare to that of a wide receiver who can score touchdowns and make things easier for the quarterback. It's obvious.
Yeah, coaches like players who can score touchdowns. You know, and your defensive players don't score as many touchdowns. So give me the guy who scores touchdowns. I'll take him. You know, and that's what it's going to come down to, I think.
No doubt. We're talking with the Godfather, Dwight Jaynes. Well, not a surprise, but the Raiders got very fortunate with the activity ahead of them. They wound up with Ashton Jeanty. And I think recall from just conversations with you over the year, like you're a big fan of what he brings to the football field, right? Ashton Jeanty?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his toughness is going to be perfect for Pete Carroll. He's looking for a guy who's really tough, who breaks tackles, has some speed. He's a perfect guy. They want to run the ball. You know that. I mean, that's what they're going to want to do, and I think that's perfect. Now, if they could only get Scadaboo in the backfield with him and play a fullback back there, now we're talking. Now I watch every Raiders game.
Yeah, no question about it. Cam Scadaboo is one of my absolute favorites. You know, it's pretty obvious with the Raiders. I think a lot of people going into the draft were thinking, oh, maybe they'll go with a quarterback or go after Shadur Sanders or something. But I'm thinking, no, they paid big money to Geno Smith. They get Ashton Jeanty. Like, Pete Carroll doesn't have a lot of time remaining. A few years maybe at max to be coach. He wants to win right now. And so the best way to do that is get a quarterback you trust in Geno and get a running back, a bell cow that you can hand the ball off. And then he'll do what we've always seen, right? Run the ball, play action, good defense, protect the football. And just by being a smarter operation, they'll put themselves in a position to win more games.
No doubt. Chad, how's their offensive line? I'm not up to speed on that because they better be good up front.
It's okay. It could use some improvement, but it's not awful. You know, and obviously offensive line with Pete Carroll is always going to be critical. But I'll say this about the Raiders. Yeah. You know, with Tom Brady sprinkling in his ideas and with his connections and bringing in Pete Carroll, you know, I feel like Mark Davis corrected the right way, meaning I don't know if there'll be a playoff team, but at least you don't have a rudderless ship now because Pete Carroll does do a good job with reclamation projects, and at least he brings expertise and experience where I feel like they'll have direction, and you'll see a much cleaner brand of football under Pete Carroll now, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, Chad. And you've heard me say this before. I like coaches who come in and get you organized.
Yes.
And that seems so simple. But a lot of these guys don't do that. They're running chaos out there, in practice, games, and everything else. Pete Carroll's going to come in with a system that has won a Super Bowl. He will come in and say, this is what you do, this is what you do, and you do. Okay, now I need these players, and we'll go out and get these guys. He knows how to win. He's organized. He'll have a good staff. They'll do things the right way. I would bet you on that.
All right. Now, I believe you're a big fan of Cam Ward. The Titans take him at number one. I'm pulling for him because, he's a local, and I like his story coming from a small college to Washington State and then to Miami for his final year in college. What do you think? What do you expect from him in the NFL? From Cam Ward?
That's a great question. I liked him at Washington State a lot, but I never saw him as a number one. I never saw him as a first round number one because he's a little small. I don't know. I just was never that enthralled with him, but he's coming out in a great year. He'd have come out last year. He'd have probably been the fourth quarter or fifth quarterback taken, but it's a great year for him to come out. Does have a great arm. There's no question the arm talent is there. It's just a matter of, and I understand he's pretty smart, so he should pick up the system pretty well. They just have to protect him and give him a chance. That's the whole thing with these guys. And, good quarterback coach. He's lucky. His head coach is an offensive guy, so he should get good coaching. They should have a good system. So I expect him to do pretty well down there.
All right. I wanted to ask you about Shedeur Sanders. A few months ago, he was projected to be the first quarterback taken, and then that shifted and it became Cam Ward. And then about 48 hours prior to the draft, we started getting some negative reporting on Shedeur. In terms of the flow of the information, because how teams are, they already know everything there is to know about a player before the draft arrives. So when you're 24 to 48 hours away from the draft, they already know everything about Shedeur Sanders that they need to know. Well, why do you think we were seeing that late flow of some negative information on Shedeur right before the draft? What's going on there?
Well, the one thing you kept hearing from certain teams and what I heard on back channels is he did not have good meetings with a lot of teams. And they go by that a lot. And they've interviewed enough players that they have certain feelings. They have intuition about players. Here's my one concern with Shedeur, Chad, that I've had all along. Has he ever played for anybody but his dad? I mean, going all the way back to when he was 8 years old. And that would worry me a little bit. How is he going to take coaching? What's he going to do when somebody yells at him or tells him to do something he doesn't want to do? What's going to happen when his mother isn't sleeping with the head coach? I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Is he going to be a good teammate? What's going to happen with him? And I think people's concerns about him holding the ball too long in the pocket are probably valid. You just can't do that in the NFL. But that's coachable. You can get that out of him. He's going to be a big question mark. There's no question. I'm really surprised that Tyler Shuck has become a guy people like. He'll go second round at the latest, I think. I don't think we ever saw that when he was a Duck.
No, definitely not. I'm wondering too with interviews. These teams that have been doing interviews of prospects for years. Now with the age of NIL and the amount of dollars that these college athletes are making, I wonder if it changes their demeanor and the way that they approach the interview. So when they sit down with the teams, they're already a millionaire before they sit down with the teams. So it's no longer like a situation of, hey, I'm happy to be here. You have a different mindset. And I'm wondering if maybe teams, it'll take a while for them to adjust to the new day and age of the college football players coming to the NFL because they sit down for the interview. You're talking to a millionaire, which is different than a kid right out of college looking to make it big, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's a good point. And you certainly are seeing different personalities out of these kids as rookies than you used to see, that's for sure. I would guess, though, that teams are still putting them through the usual harassment that rookies get, and they'll kind of learn to be a little more humble probably throughout their rookie year. But with him, it's different. He's always been judged differently, in my opinion. I think a lot of media people are afraid of offending his father by criticizing him, so he's always got a lot of positive press. And that has continued all the way through. And it's just now you're hearing stuff coming out of the NFL, which might be just plants to get people not to take him. I don't know. Who knows? But it's interesting to me that he's got such favorable press all the way through.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you an NBA question. I got to be honest with you. I've really enjoyed the first round action so far. Like, there's been a number of series that I've gotten into, and I've enjoyed the games and the play. For you, what's been the biggest thing that's jumped out so far in the first round on either side, West or East?
Well, I tell you the thing that's impressed me the most, Chad, is the way OKC has come out and really, I think, made a statement. And obviously they're not playing the best team in the playoffs. They're playing probably the worst team in the playoffs. But they came out and they've made statements. They are going to be tough to handle. I don't care what anyone says about them being young and all that other stuff. Those guys, honestly, they set, I think, the all-time league record this year for margin of victory. They've been beating the tar out of everybody all year, and that's pretty impressive. They're going to be hard to beat because they're deep, they have size, they're quick, and man, they sure guard you. That's the big deal with them.
Yeah, I thought that going into the postseason, where I looked at both sides, and I thought, man, between Boston and Oklahoma City, I don't even think there's any team on either side that's really close. And I really think that Oklahoma City and Boston would be a great matchup in the finals because OKC is the only team that can match up and switch all five positions and cover some of the space that Boston has with all their shooters. Like, that would be a fascinating matchup. But I just don't see, like in the West, if you look at those teams, take Memphis out of it and you go 2 through 7 after Oklahoma City, they're all basically lumped together. You know, I don't really see any separation there. But each of them have weaknesses that Oklahoma City does not, and they can exploit, right?
I agree, and I'm with you. It's Boston and OKC are the best two teams. There's no question. And you talked about OKC having the people to beat Boston. I think, too, Boston has the kind of team to beat OKC. They're, in spite of what I originally thought, they're well coached. They do things the right way. They have depth. They've got one of the best shooters in basketball coming off their bench. And size, if the big guy stays healthy, if they can run that kind of size out on the floor, they're going to be tough to handle too. So I think it'd be a 7-game series with some really close games if Boston and OKC meet.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Yeah, we can no longer refer to him as Missoula, Montana. Turns out that Brad Stevens knows what he's doing. Missoula is a good coach, and I got to be honest with you, Godfather. I like his demeanor and the way he handles his guys. And here's how I know this is how I know he's a good coach, because Boston, as much as I've watched him recently, that you have star players willing to make a pass, giving up a good shot for the best shot, and that tells me right there that the coaches got their ears because they get good shots all day long.
And the thing about him, I like him too. He's not afraid to come down hard on his players. He coaches guys. Yeah. He's a lot like Ime. Ime is the same way. You don't get away with stuff with those guys around. If they see you doing something wrong, they're not going to wait until 2 hours after the game to talk to you about it. They're going to yell at you right then and there. They coach people up, and they expect you to play in a disciplined fashion. I think that's the way coaches are supposed to be.
Yeah. How do you like the way Coach Adelman's handling himself so far in the Clippers series in a difficult situation?
Well, I think he's doing better than the parents at Lincoln High School thought he would do when they tried to run him out of the job at Lincoln High. Probably a little better than that, I guess. He surprised me with his composure, because I remember David, and he wasn't that composed, but I think he's learned that you have to stay that way on the sidelines. The good ones do. They don't show you much on the sidelines. They don't go crazy a lot. They just kind of keep the poker face, and he's done a good job of that. I think he's made good decisions. I was going crazy in game 1 of that series when he kept Westbrook on the floor down the stretch of the game. And, of course, the other team didn't guard him. I mean, why would you? And he hit a big three, and, he makes a play once in a while. But that's a real tightrope to walk at the end of a game to keep Russ on the floor. But he's gotten away with it.
Well, Godfather, I appreciate your time. I'll let you get on with your day. I've got I'm about a month out from the couples Chapman with your wife Nancy, so I'm going to go find a way to work on my game to make sure I'm in peak form and peak condition when I team up with her again.
Yeah, you better be. It might be your last chance, I think, Chad. I'm not sure.
Your wife is too competitive to waste her time with nonsense.
Yeah, that's right. She's not going to put up with it forever. So pressure is definitely on you. But you guys have a good chance. I know you'll play better this time around, and she'll be better too. She's getting ready to go out and get a couple lessons from a pretty good pro in Florida. So she's going down there to her sister's having some surgery,
Awesome.
and she's going to get 3 more lessons at Arnold Palmer's club down there.
That's terrific.
Where the pro is terrific down there.
That's great. All right, Godfather, I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, Chad. Always a pleasure.
All right, big thanks to the Godfather for joining the program. We'll come back and keep things rolling here. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home, the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how the Browns do end up using Travis Hunter. He wants to play both ways, and he let it be known that don't draft him if you're not going to let him play both ways. I'm just trying to figure out how this is going to work exactly. Daniel Jeremiah, who's with NFL Network, a draft expert, he put it like this, that he'll major in offense and minor in defense. And what he was saying about Travis Hunter, he thinks he's best at wide receiver, an explosive player who can impact the game in a variety of different ways, great hands, good route runner, and has a terrific understanding of the offense. He thinks in defense, at corner, he's best in, zone-type situations where he can read and react to what's going on in front of him. So, we'll see. My big question has nothing to do with his ability. The guy is a freak of nature in terms of his athleticism, his ability to play both ways, his understanding of the game. He's got the flair for the dramatic and high-leverage situations. There's a lot to love about Travis Hunter. I also like his demeanor, his attitude, and the way he handles himself. You remember last year or the year before last, his first year at Colorado after Coach Prime had gotten there. Remember he took that cheap shot in the Colorado State game and got hurt and was out for an extended period of time. He didn't lash out. He didn't criticize the guy that hit him. He just said, hey, that's football, and it's going to happen. You're going to get hit, you're going to get hurt, and you got to bounce back and continue to press forward. And when I saw the way he handled that situation, I was like, man, he's got the right mindset and the right attitude to be able to play this game at a high level. My main concern would be a couple of different things. One, in college, when he played both ways back-to-back years at Colorado, and he did a heck of a job, and it's, why he was able to win a Heisman Trophy. Basically, he didn't practice. And that means that during the week, he was in meetings around the team, studying film and doing things like that. But physically, he did not have to exert himself throughout the course of a week preparing for a football game. And with that, he was able to conserve his energy and be able to give the team everything he had on both sides of the ball. And that was the right way to handle it in college. Now, the difference is when you're playing at Colorado and you're playing in the Big 12, the competition that you see on a weekly basis is not the same as what you're going to see in the NFL. The type of athlete, how good they are, you're going up against different type of guys. So it requires practice. It requires, participation in all that activity to make sure you're ready to go for Sunday. The other difference is, too, is that, in the NFL, you're going up against a different type of athlete, a bunch of number ones, right, on both sides of the ball. And that means that physically, when you run into guys who are number ones, they're going to hit you in a different way than what you experienced in college. You're going to get hit harder. The guys are bigger, faster, and stronger. So there's going to be more punishment upon your body. And if you're trying to play both ways full time, there's a physical toll that's going to take place. Not to mention emotionally and mentally and just how draining that would be over the course of a football season. And again, I'm not saying this because I don't want him to do it. I would love to see Travis Hunter be able to pull this off because it would be amazing. But the other aspect with the practice is this. In the NFL, you've got offensive coordinators, you've got defensive coordinators who all they do is they don't even go home during the season. They sleep on the couch at the facility. They're looking at film all day long. They're diving into the game plan and trying to find ways to expose your weaknesses. The complexity that goes into an NFL game plan is off the charts, especially with some coaches who are just absurd with how in-depth the playbook is, how detailed every assignment is, like everything. That's how they roll. That's part of what makes football so amazing is that it's incredibly complex, and the diversity in the playbooks is unreal. I mean, you see things in the NFL that you just don't see anywhere else, right? Well, that requires a lot of preparation, a lot. And you only have a week to prepare for a game. And it's not even really a week because, if you play on Sunday, usually guys get that Monday off for, rest and recuperation. So my question would be this, is that if you're playing in the NFL and you're trying to go full-time on both sides of the ball, then how are you going to have the time, and just take practice out of it for a second, how are you going to have enough time in the day or throughout the course of the week to go over all of the different films and the game plan, knowing the playbook on both sides of the ball, going through the film, being ready for your assignments, understanding where you need to be and how you need to do it, and executing a game plan according to how the coaches want. Because in the NFL, they expect perfection. If you're told to be somewhere and execute it a certain way, you're expected to do it that way. And those coaches don't mess around because they put a lot of time into scouting, preparing a game plan, and making sure their guys are ready. And so the amount of time you have to spend in your playbook, watching film, discussing things, and understanding it is a totally different level. Now, the other aspect, too, with the practice is, you got a rookie coming in, and what are they going to do, not let him practice? How would he get ready for the games? But not only that, but how would the veteran players respond to that on a football team? So wait a second, we got to run through practice and bust our ass, but that rookie doesn't have to? That's not going to play well. So I just go back to what Daniel Jeremiah said, major in offense, minor in defense. And, let's be honest, not that he can't play corner at a high level, but offense is probably a better option for Travis Hunter because he's going to make more money. And if he's impacting the game primarily on offense and he's scoring touchdowns and then he's able to contribute in defensive situations, he's just going to make more money. That's really what it comes down to. Put yourself in a position to make as much money as possible because your earning window is very short in the NFL. My other concern for Hunter is that, he's a tremendous athlete and a great football player, but he's not the biggest guy in the field, right? He's not Megatron out there. He's a little bit undersized. He's not extremely heavy. He's in great condition, but you got to wonder how his body's going to hold up through all that punishment, especially going up against guys, week in and week out who are just monsters, right? So, maybe receiver is the best option for him. So I'm trying to see here with Travis Hunter. Let's get a look at his vitals. How big is he? 6 foot, 188 pounds. 6 foot, 188. Okay, just think about how many plays that is over the course of a game. So you're going to play in the NFL. You're going to go through the entire week of practice and all the film room and the study and the playbook, and you're going to be on the field for, 80 to 100 plays because you're playing both sides and trying to do it at a high level? That might be a little bit more – that's biting off more than you can chew. And we've all been there before. So if you lessen his load on one side of the ball, then maybe he can, make an impact on both sides. I'm also a big believer that – and, again, he's not normal – so it's really hard to put someone in this it's hard to put someone like Travis Hunter in this category. But I think for most people, if you don't focus in on one area or one side of the ball, can you be great on both sides? And that's a serious question. You know what I'm saying? How's that saying go? Jack of all trades, but master of none. My point being is that if he were to focus on just one side of the ball, receiver or corner, would that give him a better chance of being great and dominant at that position instead of playing both sides of the ball, where you're exerting yourself, where you're probably exhausted and fatigued with practice, playing games, and study time, and not to mention you're 6 foot, 188 pounds? How does your body hold up in that situation? So, But if you're the Browns, you probably look at it and say, man, we suck as a franchise. We can't get out of our own way. Why not just let Travis – if you're the Browns, I would let Travis Hunter play full-time quarterback, somehow get him to play wide receiver and corner all at the same time because the Browns need him that bad. And they're the Browns. Whatever they choose, it'll be the wrong thing because it always is. If you look at the two teams that are always picking up there near the top of the draft, it's the Jets and the Browns. Why? Because they're inept at making decisions. They're terrible, not good franchises. And you know that because they're always picking at the top of the draft. And then when they do get up there, they don't make the right choice. But Travis Hunter is probably the right choice. And that's why the Browns, you don't need to overthink things here. Don't take a chance. Travis Hunter is one of the top players in this draft, if not the top. Abdul Carter obviously is one of those guys. But Travis Hunter is almost a can't miss. And then you work with him. And if you want, and if he needs to figure it out on his own, let him try to do both ways full time. And let him arrive at the decision that, hey, I need to step back a little bit and reassess. Maybe it's better for him to discover that on his own And then he can walk away from that and realize that, hey, I gave it my best, but I realize now because it's the NFL that physically, mentally, emotionally, and there's not enough time under the sun to make it happen. But I'm excited to watch Travis Hunter. Good kid, easy to root for, tremendous athlete. And we saw him do something in college football over the last couple of years that we had never seen. It's pretty awesome. You know, it's not too often you get the Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders types that fly around and can do everything. I mean, Travis Hunter, if you thought about baseball, maybe you should take up hockey too. Maybe he could become like the first guy ever to go NHL, MLB, NFL, and NBA. Pick up basketball too. Travis, don't limit yourself, my man. Play all four. Just do everything. Jeez. I wish I had just an ounce or just a scotch of the type of athleticism that Travis Hunter has. You might as well play golf too. And you know Travis Hunter's one of those guys too. If he picked up golf, he'd become good at it like in 2 days. And that's really annoying to me. All right, we'll keep things rolling here. We'll get into the NBA playoffs next. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. You've got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. The hard part about the first round of the NBA playoffs is the gap between games. The teams will get, 2 or 3 days off, get a chance to recoup and rest. And that's great for veteran teams like the Lakers and Warriors. But finally tonight we'll get Game 3, Lakers and Timberwolves from Minneapolis at Target Center. I think Minnesota right now a 3.5-point favorite. That series is all tied up at 1. It feels like it's been forever. And I've been waiting and anticipating game number 3. I want to see how the Wolves respond to being at home. I want to see how they respond to the energy, and how do the Lakers go in and execute on the road against a very good defensive ball club. Again, I thought the Lakers in game number 2 were much better with the basics, right? Energy, defense, contesting. It seemed like all the guys were on the same page and playing with energy, which is what you want. So that was very impressive to me. So I give them props for the way they competed in game number 2. And I think a lot of times that's really what it's all about is, it's not just about having a game plan and executing the game plan, but coming out with a certain energy level and a fire or whatever word you want to use to describe it, to see the guys on top of things and really attacking. I thought the Lakers did that from the jump. And, the Timberwolves, I think the biggest issue with them is that early in that game, all the role players like Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels, who were hitting shots in game number 1, they weren't making threes with the regularity they had in that first game. And so with that, the Lakers were able to take advantage and put themselves in position to be able to win that game. Now, it looks like J.J. Redick, I would imagine that we may see less of Jackson Hayes moving forward in the series. Their best lineup appears to be when they've got LeBron playing the 5 in that Draymond Green type role where he can, lay back in the defense, direct traffic, and be a free safety. I think that's where they're at their best, going a little bit smaller and keeping the guys on the floor that everyone trusts, and then allowing Austin Reeves and Luka and LeBron to initiate and dictate the offense for the Lakers. I think we're going to see more of that small ball lineup moving forward because J.J. Redick, he plays Hayes for a few minutes, but not enough to get into a rhythm. And my guess is, and it's probably proper, we don't really trust him on the floor right now in high-leverage situations. But for Minnesota, even though the Lakers were the favorite going into the series, really, if you look at the Western Conference, if you take Oklahoma City out of the picture for just a moment and you look at all the other seeds 2 through 7, so take the 1-8 out of it. Take Memphis out because they're terrible. Take Oklahoma City out because they're a 68-win team. But if you go seeds 2 through 7, there's really not much separation between those teams, right? Whether it's the Clippers or it's the Nuggets or the Rockets who are at number 2, the Lakers, they're all the same. So even though the Lakers were a favorite to win the series, I didn't see Minnesota as an underdog. I see them as an equal. Those teams 2 through 7, they all have flaws. The only perfect team or close to perfect team in the Western Conference right now is Oklahoma City. So Minnesota can go in with confidence knowing that, hey, we are taking on a tough matchup because they've got Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves, 3 very good offensive players who can all create for themselves, and all 3 can initiate the offense and take pressure off of one another. But we've also got guys. We have Anthony Edwards, one of the best players in the game. We've got Rudy Gobert, who's a shot blocker. We've got unique length at the wing position that can defend. They've got different guys that can rise up and make things happen. Julius Randle had a big game, number 2. I thought he was terrific in game 2, very aggressive. So the Minnesota Timberwolves, I guess what I'm trying to say is that they're going back home. They should have a ton of confidence. They are not a big-time underdog in this series. These teams are basically equal. The Lakers, there are aspects of their team that are really good, like the 3 guys I just mentioned, and the way they can all create for themselves and initiate the offense. But they're also not great defensively, and they struggle at times to cover the three-point line. Well, Minnesota can take advantage of that. So I want to see how Minnesota responds, what type of energy they'll have, and defensively, if they can do a good job of trying to limit, you're not going to shut down all 3, but if Luka's going to get his, I guess, what I would do is be like, hey, Luka, if you're going to score 35 to 40, fine. We're just not going to let you have a big night facilitating the ball around the floor where he's going to have 12 to 15 assists. No, let him score and just limit his passing options and his ability to make plays for his teammates. Now, again, I've said it, but, LeBron James, as much as I loathe him at times, I have mad respect for his game. And just look at the way that he's been able to adapt once again and take on a different role with the team, understanding the situation with his basketball IQ and finding different ways to impact the game so Luka can have the ball in his hands. I love players like that. LeBron James is out there, playing chess. And so when Luka came over, they had those initial struggles, because Luka was just standing around and being a spot-up shooter, which is not ideal. So LeBron, recognizing the situation, encouraged Luka to be himself. And now Luka handles the ball primarily, and LeBron, off ball, has found different ways to impact the game. One, he's bigger and stronger, so he can play down in the post. He's also recognizing opportunities on the offensive glass and using his ability as a rebounder to make an impact with second chance points. And then obviously defensively, by conserving a lot of his energy on offense, he can really impact the game defensively, which is critical for him. So I like the way LeBron is playing right now. And Austin Reeves is just your classic overachiever. Gets in the league, no one really knows anything about him, and he just proves night in and night out that he can absolutely play. He can shoot the ball, he can work off the bounce, he can do a lot of different things. So I'm loving this series, and after what feels like 2 weeks, we finally get to game number 3 tonight, which is going to be terrific. Now, the other series that is my favorite right now, and you can feel the intensity. I think it was Tony and Boring who reached out to me at some point during Game 1, Rockets-Warriors, and said, man, you can tell these two teams don't like each other. And I'm like, yeah. And most people believe that if there's going to be a player ejection in the postseason, that it's going to happen most likely first in this series and then also maybe multiple times. And you could see the tempers start to flare in game number 2. By the time we're at the end of this series, which is probably going to be a long one, 6 or 7 games, these two teams are going to be getting into it constantly. But I like that. Both teams are great defensively. Both teams have a very tough mindset. And both teams have, enforcers. Well, at least as much of an enforcer as you can be in the NBA today. But I thought the Rockets bounced back really well in game number 2, a game they had to win. They played with energy. They did a heck of a job defensively. They limited Steph Curry to 20 points on 6 of 15 shooting. And then the big issue for Golden State is that Jimmy Butler only played 8 minutes. He took a fall. I think it's like a hand thing or something, but I would expect him to play. So the Warriors, my whole thought is they had, some of their key guys in, a little bit too late in the game. I mean, the game was pretty much out of hands. Like, get Steph out of there. Don't risk getting anyone else nicked up as you get ready for an important game 3 going back home. But the key for the Rockets, they got 38 points from Jalen Green. They shot the 3 ball much better in game number 2. I think they were the Warriors hit 17 threes. The Rockets hit 15 threes. And the Rockets shot a much better field goal percentage. And that's going to be the key for them. They are a great defensive team. And they have been the one team throughout the course of the season and through 2 games of the playoffs now with game number 2 where they've been able to frustrate Steph Curry. Not too many teams can do that, but they can. So it's all going to come down to shot making. And when they go on the road, they need a split in games 3 and 4. Can they find a way to make shots? Can someone step up? Will it be Jalen Green? Is it going to be somebody else? Will it be Fred VanVleet? Can someone else get hot from downtown? Can someone else be a shot maker? Because the Warriors, like the Rockets, a very good defensive team. And so it's just the offense or lack thereof for the Rockets, their inability to shoot on a consistent basis that concerns me about them moving forward. But outside of that, they've got great coaching with Ime Udoka. They're a terrific rebounding team. They've got size. They've got length. They've got multiple guys to throw at Steph Curry. And think about the value of this playoff season for the Rockets. Young team, a lot of guys with no playoff experience, but they're getting a chance to compete against the Warriors who have been there and done that, especially with their 3 vets, Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green, guys with a wealth of playoff experience. Win, lose, or draw, the young Rockets are going to gain a lot from this series and have a better understanding of what it takes to execute, how you need to play to win, and, the game plan of going into a series against a team with 2 terrific players in Butler and Curry. I mean, it's a great, opportunity. But the one thing I would remind the Rockets is, hey, keep the pressure on. If I'm Ime Udoka, I'm looking at my guys saying, hey, we're right there, okay? We just need to split here. Keep the pressure on. Steve Kerr doesn't have a lot of options. They don't have a lot of depth. They're going to have to play their big three guys, Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler, a ton of minutes. So continue to keep up the pressure, and hopefully fatigue will become a factor. And that's my main concern for the Warriors right now. Without the depth, without having multiple guys you can turn to, Steve Kerr's going to have to ride his vets. And that's fine. I would ride him too if I've got Steph Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler. But they're all a little bit longer in the tooth. And the more minutes they play, the more that you have a chance of fatigue setting in. And that's where the mistakes can start to rise up, like we saw with, Nikola Jokic in that game 2 of the Nuggets-Clippers series. He's a great player, but he has to play big minutes because he's by far their best player. And when he's not on the floor, they're not even close, remotely close to the same team. So he's got to play a ton of minutes. Well, after a while, that starts to take its toll. So there you have it. I'm excited about the Rockets-Warriors series going back to San Francisco. I'm pumped for the Lakers and Wolves tonight. And I've got to be honest with you, these playoffs and these matchups have helped rekindle that fire that I had for a long stretch of time for the NBA playoffs. You know, I'm kind of drawn in. I want more of it. I love the action. I love the intensity. Detroit and New York has been a fabulous first-round series so far. I like seeing some of the older guys, but also some of the young guys, getting a chance to get out there and make a name for themselves. It's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. I appreciate your time today. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. Man, what a great blessing this weather has been, hasn't it? It's great to be outside. You can get your yard work done. You can play golf. You can do a little bit of this, maybe some of that, or whatever the case may be. But, yeah, it is all good. When we come back, you're going to hear a conversation I had with someone that I work with whose son just completed the recruiting process. I think you'll enjoy it. Chad Doing here. And you've got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. You can reach out to me at 503-248-0620 or find me on social at Chad and Rip City, at Chad and Rip City. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, for those of you who missed this a couple of days ago, I wanted to hit it one more time because I think you'll enjoy the conversation, and it's very timely in terms of what we're seeing with the landscape of college sports right now. Baseball, football, basketball, softball, you name it, right? NIL, transfer portal. That's what it's all about. Well, I work with a lady here in the office, iHeart Portland, Tracy Normoyle, who is a terrific lady. She works on the sales team and does a lot of different things. I do a lot of work with her, and we have a good connection, and we talk football and sports. And, you know, she's got a family of athletes. Her husband played football at the University of Oregon back in the early 90s when the foundation was being laid by Rich Brooks for what we're seeing right now. And her son Jake just completed his first spring practice and spring ball game at Oregon State. So you've got two Ducks, Tracy and her husband, and now their son Jake, who's an Oregon State Beaver. But she's been talking to me over a period of, several months about the whole process, about the recruiting process, talking to head coaches, talking to position coaches, the NIL programs at different schools and how organized they are, or how the lack of organization, and then different families and different players that she knows from their time at West Lynn. And that's where Jake went to high school, was West Lynn, and had a chance to play for some great coaches and had great teammates, including Sam Levitt at Arizona State, who's now one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Tracy talks about the whole process, and I think most importantly, pointers and words of advice for parents and kids out there who are going through the same process. What to look for, what questions to ask, what to consider as you embark on the wild, wild west. And that's what it is right now with NIL and the transfer portal. And then I think most importantly, too, yes, money is important. And maybe that's some players or families' main motivation for which school they're going to choose. But there are other things to consider as well. And she talks about some of those things that they worked through with their son to make sure that he made the right choice and was at a good situation for him. So he has a chance to grow and develop as a student, as an individual, and as a football player. So Tracy Normoyle, iHeart, her son Jake, now at Oregon State. I hope you enjoy the conversation. A coworker, and I would consider her a pretty good friend now because we do some work together, and I enjoy her conversations. But most importantly, she's got a son right now who is at Oregon State, a new member of the football team, and they have gone through the entire recruiting process, and he just wrapped up his first spring and spring game. It's my pleasure to welcome Tracy Normoyle into the studio, and I've been trying to figure out how to pronounce your last name. Did I nail it?
You did. You nailed it. Normoyle.
Because I think a lot of times when I look at it, I think normally or whatever,
Yes.
But I'm sure you get that sometimes.
We always say Norm from Cheers.
Yes.
And the oil you put in your car.
Norm
oil.
That's the best way to do it right there. I got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for phonetic ways to pronounce names because I come across some sticky ones sometimes. But I'm pretty excited because I love talking about with you about football and this whole process that your son has gone through to find the proper place for him. But let's start with this. Oregon State just wrapped up their spring game. You were down there and had a chance to watch the game. But overall experience for your son, what did he communicate with you about the spring practice? And now that he's kind of getting used to his teammates and his coaches and stuff, how's the experience been so far?
Yeah, he had a great time, beautiful day, just an awesome Saturday at Reser. He went down early, so graduated high school in January, early enrolled, and just finally kind of got to take reps and be with the team starting once he was enrolled on like mid-March. And so we had a great Saturday. He's one of 7 offensive linemen, maybe 8, that was active and available. So for, basically a high schooler who's barely there to be able to get a lot of reps, he had a great time.
Now, for a young guy entering major college football for the first time, how would you say his body compares to some of the older guys on the team who have been there working out, training, eating, and developing?
Yeah, he came off the field and said he needed to get stronger. And definitely you can tell it's like a little bit of a, boy among men because he's going against 24-year-olds that have been there and 4 or 5 years in. But, they have a great program to get him ready. And so he feels really like now is the time he has a great runway to do that.
So really, Tracy, that's good for him, right? Because you get on the field, you think, hey, I'm pretty good. And then you realize like, oh, I I'm not where I need to be. I got a lot of work to do. That's good for him.
Yeah, great. And he's got great people around him to help him do it.
Now, he went to a good program in high school. Was it Westland?
Yep, Westland.
Yeah, good program. And he played on some good teams and had a lot of success during his time there.
He did. He was a state champion as a sophomore, played with Sam Levitt, who's at Arizona State, and several other great kids. Mark Hamper, who's in the portal right now. And then also as a senior was a state champion just last year.
Now, who were his coaches at Westland?
He has been very fortunate to have a host of former players. So Anthony Newman, John Eagle. I'm not sure he loved it, but my husband, his dad, and Alex Molden. So several.
Wow.
Damon Griffin. Like they have tons of former players, many of whom were Ducks.
Yes.
At Westland.
Did he understand the value of having those type of players with that type of experience around the program in the moment to realize how much they could help him?
I think he did as he aged in, but certainly, when you grow up and your dad played college football or you have family friends you maybe take it for granted. I mean, we live on the same street as Baron Naoni, who's also at Westland. He'll be playing for UW. His dad also played college football. So, we joke that, everybody's dad played college football. So I think he probably took it for granted.
Now, your husband is a Duck, right?
He is.
Did he play football at Oregon?
I'm a Duck, too. He did play football at Oregon 1994 through 1998 or 9.
Wow.
Back in the days.
What's it like for two Ducks to see their son take on the colors of Oregon State?
At first it was kind of odd.
Yeah.
But really, through the recruiting journey, we had opportunity to be treated super well at University of Oregon. And obviously that's like home. But then also we loved our experience with the coaching staff at Oregon State. And my husband actually, said Oregon State felt a lot like how his experience had felt at University of Oregon. So just, different, but it's been great I have an OSU lanyard in my purse right now.
That's perfect. All right. So Jake's at Oregon State. How many schools reached out? How many was he considering through the recruiting process?
I probably don't know exactly how many schools, a variety, a lot of regional, kind of Washington, Oregon. But some Montana, a variety of different levels. What we found was that people moved a lot. So, one spring he was talking to 5 different offensive line coaches, and by the next fall, all 5 of them were at new universities.
Wow.
And so that, turnover of staff and contact definitely impacted who he was talking to and where they were.
And you even experienced that at Oregon State, right? With some change?
Yeah. 2-3 days after he arrived on campus, his coach left to go to the Chicago Bears.
Amazing.
Van.
How difficult was that for him?
You know what? He was surrounded. He was living with a group of O-linemen, and he was not impacted negatively because we had experience from his recruiting at University of Oregon with Coach Kavanaugh. So it was, a great fit.
Yeah, Coach Kavanaugh. Now with Coach DeVan, he's considered one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. He's well known. What I'm curious about in the recruiting process, let's take Oregon State, for example. Is the majority of the recruiting done by the position coach, Coach DeVan, in this situation? How much is the head coach involved? Like, what's the process like as you kind of work through that?
We had an area recruiter, so it changed during Jake's recruitment, but Coach Ford was the area recruiter, and so that would be when he was on site at the high school, so there was relationship building there. But then, a lot of it's done really by the position coach as well. So Coach DeVan, the reason that Jake, I think, ended up at Oregon State was in part because Coach DeVan was just very consistent and very accessible and personable. But in all of our experiences, the area recruiting coordinator, the position coach, and the head coach at some level was involved.
What did you learn, you and your husband, through the process now that Jake's entering college in a day and age that we've never seen before with NIL and freedom of movement? What jumped out at you, and what did you learn through that process about, what players can get, the NIL money, how prevalent is that, the discussions that are had? What was that process like?
Yeah, it varied by school, but I think for us, it was, pick the place you want to go over the people specifically, because we saw that the people were going to turn over. So love the college campus and the facilities, the support staff. So it was really like take a 360 view because there's just so much uncertainty about whether your coaches are going to turn over. And then each school handled it really differently, whether they were out loud about NIL or they weren't. Our kiddo, his personality was that he wanted to go to a place where he could develop and be with a group of people who might stay at the same place and play for a period of time. And so that wasn't, necessarily his top priority, but it was interesting to see how it impacted, the folks we were on recruiting trips with or the conversations.
So for your son, NIL money or the amount of dollars he could get from a school was not his top priority.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was definitely where will I be able to get on the field?
Yes,
And
or where
get
he can
reps
play and develop.
and play and get coaching.
I'm curious with your husband who played college football, was his advice the same? I mean, same type of thing, pick the place where you want to be, the campus, the surroundings.
I
Because
think
if you're settled in and happy, then everything else will come from that.
And what brought Jake joy was playing football. So he wanted to get excellent coaching and excellent opportunity, but to get the chance to be playing football. And so I think that was where he prioritized his opportunity, was where he could see up the field.
Yeah. And I would imagine, it's probably different for every athlete. Like some, maybe money is the top priority. For some, maybe playing time or the chance to develop is. I guess for some kids, it could be location, maybe being closer to family. Did you notice that too in terms of the priorities, in terms of what kids were looking for or families were looking for was different from kid to kid?
For sure. And, that's why in the end, even with being a Duck family, him deciding to go to Oregon State was because that was the best fit for him.
Yes.
So really not focusing on those outside forces and looking at where he would have the best opportunity to have a relationship with a coach who was going to put him in a place to be successful.
What type of NIL opportunities does your son have? Did they plug him into anything? Does he have opportunities to make some dollars outside of, off the football field?
Yeah, I think all college athletes today have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think each school handles it differently, but they have Oregon State has a really strong program where they're educating the athletes about how to be financially literate, how to be smart with their money, how to seek opportunity. But I wouldn't say that that's like their forefront specific topic that they're, it's sort of secondary to the football product.
How does Oregon State compare to maybe some of the bigger schools that are more NIL driven?
Really, NIL wasn't a topic of conversation. It wasn't in the sense that it wasn't what was our priority in the experience.
So you weren't pursuing that those specifics necessarily when you were meeting with coaches in the recruiting process. Well, Trent Bray, I met him for the first time at camp last year, and I had known him, obviously had been on staff for quite some time, but he came across very real, like down to earth. He was still trying to, I think, get a grasp on, going from position coach to a head coach, but I found him to be very charming in his own way. What was your experience with Trent Bray?
Yeah, we loved every opportunity we spent with Coach Bray. I think his delivery is that really what he wants to do is coach football. And so he was very humble, very accessible. I appreciated he has an in-home visit with every one of the athletes on his team. And so, he came to our house for dinner and it was completely comfortable. It was, not too big for the moment and, talked to Jake's younger brother. And so our experience with Coach Bray has been that he has been humble and communicated with our family and, reached out immediately with the change in coaching with Coach DeVan. So love him. We are huge Trent Bray fans.
What was his message about losing someone the quality of Coach DeVan?
I think he's a teammate of Coach DeVan's, and so he was a person first and thought it was a great opportunity for Coach DeVan and his family. And there was no change. Coach Kavanaugh is offensive line coaching legacy, royalty. So there was no concern in the caliber of coaching for Jake. So he was happy for Coach DeVan and ready to plug someone in who's going to be turnkey for the program.
We're talking with Tracy Normoyle here on the RipCityDrive. Her son Jake's at Oregon State. She just went through the recruiting process, and he wrapped up his first spring at the spring game just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm curious with parents who may have athletes in high school right now, juniors, seniors, and they're starting to look at their colleges and go through the entire recruiting process. Like, what are some suggestions you might give in terms of your experience and what you went through about maybe the right questions to ask or what to look for as you look back with that experience?
Sure. I would say start earlier than you think because it was really sophomore, junior year. I think with the transfer portal and so much change happening, the way that the coaches make up their recruiting classes. So it was really sophomore year was more important than we had thought it would be. I would say know the NCAA eligibility calendar and contact periods because there's times of the year where coaches can't talk to your son. I would prioritize camps over like junior days or game day visits because really at the end of the day, it's about what's put on film and metrics and some intangible things might factor in, but it really comes down to them watching you play the game. So I found going for a junior day visit was fun, but they still then wanted you to come back for a camp. So if you're factoring travel in, right, like 2 trips to Montana or 2 trips to California, go to the camp.
No, will you travel to all the games to watch your son play this upcoming season? How are you going to handle that?
I think his goal is to make the travel squad, so that'll be the first hurdle. And
Awesome.
and then I imagine that we'll want to go wherever we can to watch him play and prioritize those places in the sun.
Now, does your son have any impressions? The Beavers got a big-time quarterback, Malik Murphy, in the transfer portal. Did your son give any takes on what he's seen from him?
Yeah.
Impressive, or what did he say?
Well, his first thing was he was excited and bummed because Malik took the entire offensive line out to a really nice dinner.
Yes.
But Jake didn't get to go because he came back to get his state championship ring at Westland High. So he was
Tough choice
for a kiddo. But so he said he's, been great and been very personable. And ironically, their lockers are really close to each other.
What's it like as a mom to watch your son out there in such a physical game like football? Do you get nervous, or you're used to it because you grew up around it with your husband and stuff, but what's it like watching your son play?
Yeah, I've watched football completely differently now. I watch his position and then find the ball. So,
yes.
I'm a little delayed on what's really happening on the field.
So you watch offensive line, the battle up front first before you watch where the ball's at.
Yeah, I did not used to, but as the mom of a kiddo out there, yes, I watched.
But
to make sure
you're
he was
learning
okay
more about
first.
the game now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I used to say I just prayed the whole time.
Yes.
But, I trust his training and, so I've learned to watch it a little bit differently. But, I'm just super proud of him and excited for his future.
Well, it's got to be exciting to see. Are you happy? Are you pleased with your son's process? I know what you and your husband encouraged him to do through the recruiting process, but it sounds like he was able to kind of pick the school that worked best for him. Are you happy with his process in terms of picking the spot and thinking about things and asking the right questions? Do you feel like he learned something through that process?
I do, and I think that was evidenced when the coach he had been through his entire recruiting process left a few days in, where he didn't miss a beat because he knew he had picked the kind of people and the kind of culture and, Coach Bray and the location. So I think he learned a lot about himself too. He had to drive it, right? You have to be willing to do a lot of work and make a lot of sacrifices in order to get this opportunity. And so he learned a lot about sacrifice and about work ethic and about being in the gym. And so, and now he's off doing it as himself.
Now, aside from your son, I would imagine it's kind of fun for you. You see these other kids at Westland, like Sam Levitt, for example. He's one of my favorite players in college football, and he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country this upcoming season. How cool is that to see other kids that played at Westland, that play with your son, to go on to become bigger and better things in college football?
Yeah, I think we're really fortunate to have an awesome community and a great program. And then, I know Sam and Mark are coming back to do a camp I think next week, actually, at Westland to give back to the community. So it's fun because a lot of these kids grew up from kindergarten all the way through high school.
Oh, they've known each other for a long time.
Known each other. They, played on 9U baseball teams together. And so it's fun. We're going to be down watching one of his buddies play baseball at Oregon. So there's lots of them going in lots of different places.
Well, what's cool for me is when I listen to some of these young, athletes, men and young women and young men communicate, it gives me hope for the future because there's some of our best and brightest who are competing and going to school and still being students and putting their best effort out there. I like to see that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I would say that is one thing too that I would want to impart to other parents is one thing we heard over and over on the recruiting trail was your GPA and your grades matter, and they can't even talk to you if you aren't at a certain grade point average, and especially like regional schools who want to take advantage of the WUI, which is kind of a reciprocal tuition process. You have to have, like a 3.5 at least GPA. And so making sure that your kiddos stay in school and are doing well in classes. I know Jake had to take, Jake took summer school in order to be able to enroll early. So planning ahead to have the credits you need to graduate and have a grade point average that puts you in the conversation.
How difficult is school keeping up on your studies during the course of the season? And what have you been told about that? And what type of support do they give to the kids? Because they're working out in the film room, studying, practicing, doing all that stuff. That's a lot of load for a youngster.
I think we're only a few weeks into it, so we're learning, but it's an embarrassment of riches than the resources. Jake has an advisor that is meeting with him to talk to him about, what assignments are due and what the due timing is and what his upcoming load will be. And so goes to class, and then has a full staff of people willing to help support how to get him through. So far he's had tons of support.
How many boys do you have in the house?
Well, there's 2 kids, our dog and my husband. So,
yes. So you got, I would imagine Jake, like the food bill pretty high when you got football players,
yes,
right?
we are experiencing a dramatic decline in our grocery bill for sure now that he's gone.
That's good. But they also help with his access to the training table. Like they'll help him with caloric intake, like nutrition for position, right? So if he needs to put on weight and continue to bulk up, I've seen the facilities down there. They've really improved him significantly. It's beautiful. But it's nice to know that you get proper instruction on how to get your body where it needs to be able to play at the level that you're hoping to play at, which is cool.
Yeah, we had a parent meeting before the spring game. Coach Bray had a parent meeting and, talked about this next few months and what the calendar looks like. And each player gets to meet with their position coach and then the head coach. And I would say half of the parent meeting was about strength, conditioning, and then nutrition. And the nutritionist that is designing plans for whether it's weight gain or weight loss or muscle build. So it was super impressive to hear, they're going on grocery store trips together to teach them how to grocery shop appropriately for their goals. They're talking about more green on their plate. It doesn't matter that mom's been saying it forever. It's the nutritionist. They
Good.
have a full service opportunity to get better on all little parts of their lives.
That's terrific. We're talking with Tracy Normoyle on the RipCityDrive. Her son Jake's at Oregon State. She just went through the recruiting process. I'm curious because I've heard that Oregon, and we know this, they're cutting edge in so many different ways, the Ducks and how they operate. As a former Duck, what was your impression on their recruiting process and how buttoned up they were? What were your impressions of Oregon?
It was amazing. Their facilities are unbelievable. It was beautifully executed. There was the weight room, the everything they had was top of.
So it's noticeable instantly.
It's amazing. It's amazing facilities, just buttoned up, detailed. Really, we always kind of joked it was like bright and shiny.
Yeah.
It was so like there was a million light bulbs going off everywhere all of the time. So it was impressive.
Your husband played at a time when really at the beginning of that was the
Maybe
foundation.
Before the beginning, yeah.
Yes, that was the foundation being laid for what we see now. How proud is your husband to see? Is he blown away to see where Oregon football is at today compared to when he was playing at the school?
Yeah, but I think what was amazing during our recruiting process was how great they still treated the former athletes and the guys. They're still
showing respect to your husband and everyone else.
The same equipment guys are there. Some of the same doctors are there.
That's awesome.
Some of the same strength and conditioning coaches are still there. So it was still at its core what we remembered. It's just at a very much bigger level now.
Well, I would imagine for you personally, I know how difficult it was when I moved out of the house. My mom was very sad, but it's got to be nice to know that Jake, while he's away, he's not far away, right? You can reach him in 90 minutes.
Yeah, he's been great and indulged his mom, but also he's happy. And so I'm less worried because he's down there having a ball and meeting great people, and the people we've met that are down there have been the kind of people that you want your kid around. So
How challenging is it for you not to be like too aggressive in your, because I know how my mom is. Like my dad told me great advice when I was younger. He said, look, your mom is always going to be your mom. And the sooner you understand that and embrace it, the easier life's going to be. And he was right, because my mom's always going to interject because she's my mom. But for you, now that your son's out, like, how do you find that balance of not going overboard, but yet allowing him to grow as a young man?
yeah, I have had to rein it in, but I also am grateful for texts.
Yeah.
He talks to his dad because they're talking about football, right? So they were getting a lot more communication, and I wanted to make sure, that he was paying his parking ticket and making sure that, the sheets fit on the bed and all of the mom questions. So he FaceTimed me and let me ask all my mom questions.
Yes.
And he's patient with me. But I want him to go fly and have fun, and he is. So I'm glad he's not too far away.
Well, Tracy, I know that I appreciate you coming in. Like a lot of people who don't do radio every day, I know you were a little bit nervous because you didn't think you'd have a lot of good things to say. So I'm going to ask you now that it's over, how hard was that?
Not so bad.
We just had conversation.
Yeah, it's not so bad. I'd come back.
Well, I tell you what, I have a great deal of respect for you. I enjoy, it's and you know how this is because you've worked for a long time, but it's nice when you encounter coworkers that you enjoy just being around, and you're awesome. So I'm very happy for you and your husband, and I'm excited to watch Jake. Now I've got a personal connection to the Beaver program, so I'm going to be I'm excited to see what Jake will become, which is cool.
Well, I always appreciate you indulging me with my mom topics and bringing up to speed on all the random stuff I learned.
Well, and I can ask you too, because you give me the intel on Sam Levitt, and the more you tell me about him, I'm like, oh, not only is he a great quarterback, but he's a cool dude.
So great. I mean, he and the Hampers their families are awesome, and nothing but happy for them.
How much is Sam loving Arizona State?
I don't actually keep in touch a ton with Sam, so Jake would probably have to answer that question, but I know we keep in touch with the Hamper family.
Oh, good.
Do
you have any idea where Hamper's going to wind up?
I selfishly hope he ends up with Sam.
Yeah.
It'd be super fun to watch that.
Yeah, go to Arizona State and be down there with the Sun Devils. Well, Tracy Normoyle here on the RipCityDrive. Tracy, thank you for sharing the input, and good luck to you and your family and your son as he embarks on his journey.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Tracy. I certainly did, and thanks to her for her time. When we come back, it's a big weekend in the Doing household. I'll explain on the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Well, tomorrow's a big night. My daughter is a freshman in high school, and she's going to go to the prom. I saw her in her dress. She picked it out herself. It was actually reasonably priced, and she looked beautiful. And she's going to go to the prom. She's going to go with a friend of hers, her best friend, Brenna, and they're going to go to the prom together. So I'm pretty excited about that. But, man, I'll tell you what, there's you have these moments in life or moments as a father. And I know you dads out there can, understand this, but, the relationship between a father and a daughter is a special one. And I have this connection with her and this overwhelming sense to do whatever has to be done to protect her, to care for her, to be there for her. Like I really, really would do anything. And I never knew that I had that in me until, she came along. I mean, I love my son, and Isaac is awesome. And I will always be there for him, too. But there's just something different about having a daughter. But you have these moments where you realize that there's changes or that they're not the same kid that they used to be. And that was the experience I had when I was looking at her in her prom dress. And I was thinking, just don't say anything stupid, you moron. Be smart. Be choosy with your words. But she looked great, and I'm excited for her. And hopefully she will have a good time. And I think it's cool that she's going to go with her friend and they get a chance to go through the experience. The funny thing is, and I don't know how you ladies do it, mad respect to you for how you're able to bump around and operate in public or at work with heels on. You couldn't pay me enough money under the sun to wear something that would cause nothing but devastation to my feet. My feet are important to me. How do you guys do it? How do you wear heels and be comfortable at the same time? Yeah, and why would you do that? Well, why wear something that looks nice but is highly uncomfortable, especially if you're going to be wearing it for a few hours? So last night, Kaylee, after I had a chance to see her dress, she was walking around the house practicing how to walk and do the best job that she could in her heels. And I was watching her strut back and forth, and she's like, Dad, these aren't real comfortable. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I said, why don't you just wear flats? And she goes, Dad, the dress is too long. It's not going to work. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know how these things work, but that was the deal. I got the little strut up and down with the dress on, and then I saw her practicing the walk and getting used to the heels because she's going to be in them for a few hours on Saturday. But there you have it. I looked at her when I saw her in the dress, and I'm like, I didn't see my little baby girl anymore. I saw a young woman, and it's an interesting experience as a dad. She's not the baby girl anymore. She's not, but she is a sweetheart, and she's doing well, and I just want to see her continue down that path. So we'll see how things go. But we're just early in the teenage years. She just turned 15, so we'll see how things continue to progress. But I'm excited for her, and she's pretty excited, and I think her friend Brenna is pretty excited as well. She got in trouble the other day, though. I dropped her and Brenna off at school, and Kaylee was in kind of a mood, and I said bye to them, have a good day at school, and she just shut the door and walked off and did not acknowledge me. So I took her cell phone for a couple of days and just waited for her to come to me, and she did. She apologized and gave me a hug, and I said, we're good. I said, I love you. I said, there's also a certain level of respect back and forth, with the way we have to communicate. She understood, and that's the way it goes. So that's what's going on this weekend. I got the big prom. And then I've got Isaac's got a couple of appointments. He's got, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, so I'll be running him around. Yeah, basically just the taxi dad service that I don't get paid for, that just costs me more money, that has me running around town. And I'm like torn because I know that Kaylee's going to get close to driving age. She'll be entering, traffic safety here in probably about 4 or 5 months. So part of me's like, yes, get a license and drive, and then I don't have to haul you around town all the time. But then the other part of me is like, no, don't do that because it's dangerous. I don't have to worry about you and your car and your cell phone and more insurance. So it's difficult either way. But I was looking at the forecast, and it looks like we've got better weather ahead. I mean, seriously, the rest of the month of April into the first part of May is looking good. And it's almost like the good Lord above is saying, you know what? You put in a lot of work during the Trailblazer season. Here are some nice weather days for you to go out and enjoy. And that's what I'm looking at right now. It's unbelievable. So this is what we're looking at in terms of weather over the next few days. So obviously today is really nice. Saturday, 68 and partly sunny. Sunday's cloudy, high of 62. Monday, 61 and cloudy. Tuesday, rain. But then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday of the following week, sun, partly sunny, partly sunny. Thursday, the 1st, high of 82 and sunny. That is what I'm talking about. Give me more of those type of days. And I'm looking at my forecast all the way out through May 8th. Partly sunny, partly sunny, partly sunny, partly sunny, partly sunny. And from the 4th all the way to the 8th, temperatures in the 70s. Okay, sign me up. You know, and we deserve it too, by the way, because we deal with a lot of nonsense out here during the winter months with the rain, the constant rain, the cooler temperatures. It's nice that when we get rewarded like this. And for me, you know, because my life revolves and has for a long time around the sports calendar, the NBA playoffs usually means better weather, right? The start of football season means fall and the end of summer. The end of football season means it's freezing outside and raining out here in the Northwest. But you know how different things bring up different memories. But I'm loving that. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. We're going to revisit a conversation, a very important conversation coming up next hour that I think you'll enjoy. I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the countdown to the weekend is on. You got to love that. I appreciate your time on this Friday, Chad, doing Rip City Drive. Another beautiful day here in the Portland area. We are being just blessed with awesome weather here at the end of April, which I am pumped about. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, we're going to hear a conversation with an ex-trailblazer. The thought process came up on the golf course. I'll explain that, and we'll hear from that coming up here in about 20 minutes. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on social at Chad and Rip City, or just call the show at 503-248-0620. I got my mattress. It's been solved. I took care of the problem, and I can't wait to sleep properly once again, to be comfortable and to sleep and to get my back in a better position. So I'm geeked on that. It's going to be delivered tomorrow. And aside from that's going to be take place in the morning, and then, of course, in the evening time, I'll be driving around. Taxi dad. Daughter's going to prom. Isaac's got different places to be, so I'll be busy being taxi dad tomorrow, but looking forward to the weekend for sure. So, again, you can reach out to me on social at Chad and Rip City, or just give a phone call to the program at 503-248-0620. It's great to be here, and it's great to be with you. Always appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to listen. All right, so NFL draft, a couple of things. First off, the big surprise to kick off the night was a trade between the Browns and the Jaguars, which landed Travis Hunter in Jacksonville. And with Travis Hunter, you know the big deal. He wants to play, but only for a team that's going to let him play on both sides of the ball. And I think I figured out how this is going to work. Look, I want to see Travis Hunter play on both sides of the ball. I just don't think he can do it in the NFL going full-time on both sides, offense and defense. I don't think it's physically possible. I don't think it's mentally possible. I think it's too emotionally draining, the whole shebang. And that's not to take anything away from Travis Hunter. He is a tremendous athlete, but he's only 6 foot, 188 pounds. And the way he was able to get that done at Colorado was by resting during the week, no practice. And that was smart for Coach Prime, because it's like, hey, he's our best player. We need him on both sides of the ball, and we're going to try and win games, so we're going to rest him. He won't have to practice, and we can use him on both sides. But the difference is in college, when you're playing at Colorado, you're not facing the type of talent you do week in and week out in the NFL. The schedule is not as long as it is in the NFL, and the physicality is nowhere near the same. But the other issue is the practice. Practice in the NFL is critical because you're going up against sophisticated offenses and defenses. Everything is so precise in terms of game planning, execution, where you need to be on the field, the communication, the timing, all of it. Like, you can't make big errors in the NFL or you get exposed and you lose games. And when you lose games, people lose their jobs, and it's a big deal. So practice time is critical, but also during the week, players spend a ton of time, not on the practice field, but in meeting rooms with their position groups, going over film, going over the game plan, and talking about specifics. And I just don't think there's enough time in the week to where you could possibly be fully prepared via practice, in the film room, with the game plan, understanding these deep and complex playbooks to the level that you need to be able to execute in all situations. And the game plans week to week change dramatically based on matchup and opponent. So I just don't know if it can be done. If someone can do it, it would be Travis Hunter, but I think that would be difficult. So I think this is how I see it playing out. Like, if you're the Jags, you want to present yourself as open to anything. So you tell Travis, hey, we want you to play both ways, offense and defense. We want you to do it. We believe in you. We know you're a tremendous athlete. We drafted you because we want you to come in and be that type of difference maker. But I think they know in saying that he's not going to be able to do it. But you don't tell him that. You bring him in and let him start the process. And then, because Travis Hunter's smart, he understands football, and he knows what it takes to perform and play at a high level, you let him arrive at that conclusion on his own. So you put him through camp. He's in practice. He's in the meeting rooms. He's going through the playbook. And then he realizes, like, whoa, it's much more. I thought it would be tough, but it's on a different level than I could have possibly imagined. And then from there, he recognizes that he won't be able to be at his best if he's overloaded mentally in preparation for each game, because he's trying to absorb so much information for offense and defense. Not to mention the physical punishment. At 6 foot, 188 pounds, going up against, superior athletes or guys like himself, what type of physical punishment are you going to take playing on both sides? Physically, would you be able to take that type of punishment on a Sunday and be ready for practice the next week? And then you multiply that by 17 because you got 17 games on the schedule. No, let him arrive at the conclusion, and then you move on from there. That's how that needs to go down. And that's how I think it will go down. And then I keep going back to what Daniel Jeremiah said from NFL Network, that he'll major in offense at receiver, minor in defense. So what you do is you find packages in defense with your zone coverages and different spots where you can have him on the field to make a difference. If you got a high leverage situation, if you got a spot where you need someone on the field to make a play, then you do it. So you find the packages where he can assist on defense, but let him be a star on offense. But let him arrive at that conclusion himself when he realizes, like, okay, I thought that this was the path I wanted to take, but I'm not going to be at my best, so we're going to take this in a different route. And I think that's the way to do it. Now, with the Raiders, they were so fortunate with the finagling that went on in front of them. They just sat right there and took Ashton Genty. And this goes back to, I think I was having a conversation with Raider Mike yesterday. Pete Carroll is not looking to rebuild from scratch with youth. They went out and brought in Geno. They paid him money. He's a coach that knows how to get things on track in a hurry. And he's also a coach at the end of his career with only a few years remaining. So he doesn't have a lot of time. So if you have a coach like that loves coaching and wants to win and is ultra competitive, he's not looking to bring along youngsters and hopefully develop them. No, he's going to plug guys in who can help him win right away. And Ashton Genty is that guy. What does Pete Carroll like to do? He likes to run the football. What does Pete Carroll like to do with Geno Smith? He likes to run the ball and use play action. So what Pete Carroll is going to do is he's going to utilize Ashton Genty in big doses. Run the football, control the clock, put Geno Smith in a position to have success, and then we're going to protect the football. Ball security is big to Pete Carroll. So you run the ball, use play action, and you put your defense in a better position because they're getting rest, because you're having sustained drives. Geno Smith's in a better spot because he's got a guy in the backfield that he can throw the football to, that he can lean on in running situations, who's a big threat, and then it puts him in a better position because the defense is worried about the run game. So I really like the maneuver there for the Raiders to get Ashton Genty. He's going to be a star. He's going to be a bell cow. And what I'm hoping is that with the emergence of Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, that we're going to see this resurgence of the running back in the NFL. And I think that's going to be important, right? So that's how it's going to go down. But nice move. And I'm telling you, the Raiders, not my, shall we say, favorite team, but I do respect what they've done with bringing in Pete Carroll, because Pete Carroll brings organization. He'll lay a foundation. Guys are going to be smarter because he's coaching them, and you're going to see a much more competent football team on the field. Now, I just want to run this by you. When I first started watching the NFL, talking about running backs, it was back in 1986. That was my first full year of football where I became addicted. It was like, oh, yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but I need a lot more of this. But in 1986, just take a listen to the running backs who dominated the league at that time. Eric Dickerson led the NFL in rushing, 1,821 yards, followed by Gerald Riggs, Joe Morris with the Giants, Walter Payton, Kurt Warner with the Seahawks. He had 1,481 yards on 319 carries. George Rogers, Redskins, Reuben Mays with the Saints, James Jones with Detroit, Sammy Winder with the Broncos, Ernest Jackson, and the list goes on. But you talk about those big names and how many carries they got. 404 for Dickerson, 343 for Riggs, 341 for Morris, 321 for Payton, 319 for Kurt Warner, and 303 for George Rogers. You see how the NFL's changed? You had bell cow running backs that would get the bulk of the carries, but over time, as the league's become more pass happy, teams have gotten away from, running the football and trying to establish the run and to be dominant in that department. But I think what's happening now is defenses have gotten smaller and faster to deal with the passing game. Now you're going to start to see some offenses self-correct and get more physical and try to run the football and take advantage of those mismatches. And when you run the ball well and you can stop the run and control the clock, you're going to be in a position to win a lot of games. If you protect the ball, don't turn it over, run the ball and stop the run, you're going to be right there in a position to get the job done. So look for Pete Carroll to run the heck out of Ashton Genty. And if I'm Ashton Genty, I'm pumped because not only did I get selected in the top 10 of the NFL draft, but I also am going to a team where I know the head coach is going to run the football. And when you're a running back and you know your coach is a guy that has the identity of running the football and being physical and taking advantage of those opportunities, you got to be jacked up. It's unbelievable. So major props to the Raiders for that maneuver. But those are the big things that jump out. No surprise at the top. Cam Ward is going to go to Tennessee. I like him. I like his story, and I hope he does well. And I'm excited to see what type of quarterback he becomes. And then we saw the usual suspects. The Giants got Abdul Carter. Love that pick because he's one of those guys that has a chance to be dominant and be a game changer. And now he can go in there, and the Giants didn't take a reach on a quarterback. They went with the sure thing. And if you're in a position where you need a quarterback, but you're not for sure that that quarterback's going to come in and be a change maker or a difference maker, then don't take a risk. Take the best player available. They got Abdul Carter. When we come back on the Rip City Drive, we're going to hear a conversation I had with Clifford Robinson, a former Trailblazer great who sadly passed away, and one of the ex-Trailblazer greats from those early 90 teams, along with Kevin Duckworth and Jerome Kersey, who are no longer with us. But his name came up, and a conversation about him came up on the course, and I was thinking, when was the last time I spoke with him? And so I looked that up, and I'm a big fan of Cliff, and it was always great to see him around town. So we're going to eavesdrop in on that conversation. I never want to forget about the great Blazers that we grew up with, man. It's awesome. Hope you're enjoying this Friday. So many great things going on. NBA playoffs, NFL draft continues. It's a great time to be following sports. So hope you're enjoying the sunshine. You've got the Friday edition of the Rip City Drive. Chad doing here. Hit me up on social at Chad and Rip City, or you can call the show at 503-248-0620. Here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. I was playing golf yesterday out at Heron Lakes, and that's one of the places where Cliff Robinson used to frequent. He would play golf, he would hang out. He really did a good job of just being one of the guys, and you would see him around town frequently. He went to Buffalo Bills backer bar and would watch games and hang out with people. The one thing I appreciated about Cliff is that he was just a part of the community, and he would participate with people. He'd play in a golf league. You could roll up on him at the course and talk to him, just like one of the guys. It was really cool to see him, bump around. And I was talking with a few guys who were just reminiscing and talking about how they missed him. And so I was trying to think back, when did I get a chance to talk with him? And it was back in 2014. It was the last conversation I had with him on radio before he passed away, because shortly after that, I moved down to the Bay Area. And then when I came back, things had changed. So I wanted to share with you Cliff Robinson. I had a chance to talk with him about his experience on the show Survivor, which is always unique when you're a star athlete or a big name, and the way that people deal with you on the show. We talked to him about UConn and his experience in college, and also his playing days. He played a long time in the NBA and came close to winning a championship, and of course was a part of the early 90s finals teams here in Portland. I also talked to him about one of the classic games. I think it's my favorite regular season basketball game of all time, a game that he and Clyde and Terry and the rest of the crew played in 1992 at Boston Garden against Larry Bird in his final season. So I wanted to share with you, and I was thinking about Cliff, and he's one of those players and people in the community that I just miss. The conversation starts with me busting his chops about not picking UConn or not doing a bracket that year because he didn't want to jinx UConn, or he didn't think UConn was going to do so well, and he got a laugh out of that. We go to the phones right now and welcome Cliff Robinson back to the program. Hey, Cliff, I've got to ask you, my friend, I read where you didn't even fill out a bracket this year because you didn't think UConn had a chance, and you usually have them winning it all each year. Are you ashamed of your lack of faith? What's up with that?
No, that's not true. I just said I usually don't fill out a bracket because I always have UConn going to the finals anyway, because I always pick with my heart, and as goes to prove it, I don't need to, because we're back in the Final Four again.
How'd you enjoy your time playing college basketball?
Oh, it was great. It was great being a part of building a program, or really kickstarting a program into where it's at right now. Because when I first attended UConn, it was a program that nobody really gave a lot of respect to. It had some good, a sprinkle of good players here and there, but we were able to win the NIT in '88 and just kind of build some momentum for the program to where it's at today.
I got to be honest with you. It was pretty darn cool to see you on Survivor. I know you were a big fan of the show before you went on, but when they came to you and said, "Hey, we want you on the show," what was your initial reaction to the opportunity?
I was excited, to tell you the truth, to have a chance to go out and play a game that you're kind of you're a fan of, but yet you're also one of those armchair quarterbacks where you're sitting around second guessing other people's decisions. And when opportunity came for me to go on there, here's my chance to have somebody second guess my decisions and just try to go out there and maneuver through the game the best way I can.
How crazy was that for your wife? Because you guys used to watch the show together, and now you're on the show. That's wild.
She was excited. I think she was actually the driving force behind actually reaching out to casting and getting that ball rolling. So I really credit her and Lisa Singer, people who actually really were behind the scenes, actually pushing for me to be on the show.
And what was the deal with you and Lindsay? How were you able to connect with her so well?
Just certain people, you just kind of gravitate toward, to with their, kind of click with personality. So I think that was, pretty much how we, hit it off. We have, our personalities clicked, and it was kind of like her, support system out there. She was really missing her family and her kids, so I kind of felt for her in that regard. So I just kind of was trying to be there for her as a friend.
We're talking with Cliff Robinson now. Maybe you can kind of give us a peek behind the curtains, but when you watch it on TV, you're only getting a snapshot. But when you're playing the game like you were, it's 24 hours a day. There's no cut. What's that like?
You just kind of roll with it. After the beginning of the game, you kind of you have to go through a process where you're not really talking. You're not talking to anybody. So once you're put in the game, you're just so excited to get a chance to talk to the people that you have been around, and not having the opportunity to talk to. It's you just kind of forget that the camera's there and just play the game.
Looking back, was your biggest mistake not dealing with Trish, or just maybe getting a little bit too comfortable?
Well, anytime you get comfortable in that game, it's going to come back and bite you. But you also have to make sure that you're playing the game with everybody. And for me, if I can, look back on somewhere where I could have played the game a little bit better, it was probably with Trish, just to make her feel a little bit more comfortable with where she was at with me. And the game is always constantly evolving, so you gotta always be making adjustments on the fly. And at one point I did get a little bit comfortable, and I should have played that part of my game a little bit better.
But I think for you it's a little bit different, because we've seen stars on the show before. See, there's a little animosity because they look at a guy like Cliff Robinson and they say, well, he was a basketball player, he's got money. They don't want you to win, so that makes it even harder.
Well, that's going to make it harder for anybody whose status or someone who's been able to have some success out in the world, whether it's through celebrity or business. If that target is something that is if that's spread and it's spread throughout your tribe, it's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. And for me, that was really a big, that was really something that intrigued me about the game. Can I go out there at 6'10", where somebody may recognize me and, maneuver through the game?
We're talking with Cliff Robinson. Man, 18 years in the NBA. What was the key to your longevity, Cliff?
I don't know. I guess I always attribute having a late start. Probably my first year of organized basketball was in high school, my freshman year. So, I think I was able to keep a love for the game a lot longer than maybe someone who started, maybe when they were a lot younger.
Mm-hmm. Do you look back on your career? It's amazing, but you played in the postseason 17 out of 18 years. I mean, a lot of guys don't get a taste. You had it year after year. That's incredible.
Well, that's what I'm always happy about that part of my career. I was able to be on some successful teams in Portland, and I carried that on into Phoenix. Helped rebuild Detroit. I'm very happy with with the run I had. Longevity is always something that someone should be proud of on any job. So for me to play 18 years in a professional as a professional athlete, I'm very pleased with that. And to go to the playoffs 17 out of the 18 years, I'm definitely pleased with that.
You know what? We all know about your early final teams in Portland, which were so great, and we know the starters, but you had incredible bench players. Mark Bryant, Danny Young, Ainge later on, yourself. What was your mentality on that bench as a sixth man?
Well, I was able to learn from some great players. I mean, you mentioned Danny. I played with Drazen Petrovic. I played with Walter Davis, who was a great player. Wayne Cooper, who was a great player. Ala Abdenabi, who was such a talented player. He was, somebody who was very good in the post, and I was able to pick up some things from. So, you try to pick up some things along the way, but the guys that I was able to come in and play with, like Clyde, Terry Porter, Buck Williams, Jerome Kersey, and Duck, I'll never forget those guys. Those guys really laid the foundation for me going forward as a professional basketball player.
Cliff, you played with Sabonis Sabas his first year here in Portland. I always admired his skill level. What was it like playing with him?
Oh, come on. That's all you had to do is look at all the guys cutting to the basket, going backdoor, trying to get open, because that's one thing, anybody that played with Sabas would tell you, that he was a tremendous passer, and if you got open, he was going to find you.
Yeah, no doubt. I had Derek Anderson, DA, on the show a couple of days ago. He said Sabas was the best big man I ever played with, and he played with some good ones.
You know what? I would tell you the truth. I would put his body of work internationally and, what he was able to do with the Blazers up against any big man, because, for someone to be able to come into the league late in his, late into his professional career the way he did and still have the impact that he did, that just goes to show what kind of player he was probably in his prime.
How'd you enjoy your early days in Phoenix? You had a chance to play with some great teammates there as well, guys like KJ, Hot Rod, Rex, and a young Jason Kidd at the time. What do you remember about those days?
I'll tell you what I remember about those days the most is that we had some very good teams in Phoenix, but everybody else in the West was good too. Portland was great. LA was great. The Spurs, Sacramento at that time was good. So, we were a 50-win team with a lot of tremendous talent, and always had, it was just a tough conference at the time.
Now, Cliff, one of my favorite games as a youngster, even though it was a Blazer loss, it was you guys were playing at the Celtics, 1992, Larry Bird's last season, his last great game. It was a crazy double overtime game, but you and Bird were going back and forth in that game. What do you remember about that moment, and also what was it like competing against Larry Legend?
You know what? I'll tell you, for him to have the injury that he did that year and be able to come back and play such a great game, he's a great player. I mean, he just goes to show that, someone of his caliber, when the lights come on, when the opportunity for them to go out there and pull a tough victory out for their team, he was that guy. I was always a big fan of Larry, and that was a great game. Unfortunately, we were on the losing end of that game, and but anytime you have an opportunity to learn and play against a player like that, you want to try to take something from it.
And of course, he's one of those guys too. When he's playing well, he likes to remind you of how well he's playing too, doesn't he?
Oh, of course, and that's the fun part of the game. That's what makes it fun when someone of that caliber just tries to push you to another level. You got to try to do what you can to reach it.
Cliff, you play basketball. 18 seasons. You're coming off Survivor. What's next for you? What are some other things you're looking to accomplish?
You know what? I'm continuing to work with my wife Heather. I'm pushing our foundation forward, the Robinson Network. We've got some initiatives that we're pushing forward there. I have a basketball shoe that I've been working on hard. It's called the TRPL Threat. We should be seeing that pretty soon. So I've got some things on the fire, and just trying to continue to stay positive and move forward.
How do you enjoy working behind the scenes on a basketball shoe? And in your mind, because you played the game and you understand what you need, what's the key to a good basketball shoe?
Well, the key to a good basketball shoe is making sure that the young kids like it. Because to tell you the truth, they're the ones that are really going out and buying the shoe and making sure that the shoe is having some success. So you got to make sure that you're reaching the youth and getting their opinion and making sure that you're just trying to keep it cool and fresh.
And what's it like? You played in a few different markets, but there's few places that are as special as Portland in terms of the relationship between team and community. What's it like to be a forever member of Rip City?
Come on. That's a city that's always showed love for me, showed love for the Blazers. And, it's always been, will always have a special place in my heart. I have family still in the Portland area. I have a lot of great relationships that I've established in the Portland area. So I'll always be a part of the part of Portland, part of the city, and the city of Portland will always be a part of me.
Hey, Cliff, final question for you. As an athlete, I've always wondered, you put in 8 or 9 months. The season is so long, and you grind through the playoffs. How do you reconcile when you get to the finals and you come so close to winning a championship but fall short? I mean, how do you move forward from that? Is it easy to let go of and just move on to the next season, or is that something that you have to take a moment to kind of stomach and move forward with? How do you deal with that?
Well, it's tough. Anytime you reach the pinnacle of any professional sport and have an opportunity to win that, win a championship. And you don't, it's always going to bother you a little bit. But as professional athletes, athletes, period, you got to learn to, move on. You got to learn to move on and take your losses as you do your wins, because, you're going to have some wins, you're going to have some losses. So, take them as they come, enjoy them as they come, and when you have an opportunity to play for something, always play for your hardest and play for your team.
All right, UConn's playing that underdog role in the Final Four. How do you think that's going to suit them moving forward?
Yeah, we're in the Final Four. I like our chances just as well as anybody else's. We were able to knock off some tough teams. St. Joe's was tough. That was a tough win for us. To knock off Villanova, Michigan State, which were two higher ranked teams than us. It just puts us in a good position with confidence as well. I think Sebastian's playing well. Boatwright is playing well. Samuels is coming in off the bench and giving them some tough defensive minutes. Daniels is playing well. So, I mean, I like their chances just as anybody else does.
Great stuff. 18 seasons in the NBA. Cliff Robinson with us here on the program. Cliff, I really enjoyed that conversation. Great job on Survivor, and good luck with your foundation and work with your wife, Heather, and I appreciate it, man. You're always welcome on the show. Anytime you need anything done, we'll do it for you.
I thank you. I appreciate that. You guys have a good one.
There you go. Cliff Robinson, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Cliff Robinson was obviously one of my favorite Trailblazers. I grew up with him and then had a chance to talk with him and get to know him a bit. And he was a good member in the community. So miss him dearly and wish he was still with us. And that was the sad part about the celebration the Blazers had at the end of the season at Moda Center, where they were celebrating the finals teams from the 90s, is that some of the players came back, but some of the guys from those teams are gone, including Jerome Kersey, beloved here in Rip City. Same with Kevin Duckworth, and, of course, Cliff Robinson. And it's one of the most difficult things about getting older, isn't it? Where you have to say goodbye to people you know, loved ones, family members, friends, athletes that you grew up with, the different entertainers or people that you may have admired or looked up to. I hate having to say goodbye, and that's just part of life. And, of course, the difficult aspect to, what we experience is that we're never prepared for the loss of human life, ever. It's tough. But Cliff Robinson was a beauty, so I hope you enjoyed that. We'll keep things rolling here. Rip City Drive with Chad doing on this beautiful Friday as we near the beginning of May. And that means what? Well, better weather. Continued better weather, which is really nice. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. I'm looking forward to the weekend. Oh, by the way, you ever had this happen where you discover a food that you really like that for whatever reason you weren't eating it prior, and then you just start ODing on it? Well, I've discovered that with mushrooms over the last couple of nights. I love mushrooms. I'm not sure why I wasn't consuming more mushrooms before, but now I'm all over it. Normally for dinner, and my calories are locked in specifically right now for what I'm trying to accomplish. So usually at night, I'll do some type of stir-fry action. I love vegetables. I love as much color on my dinner plate as possible. And so I like to do a stir-fry, and I'll put some noodles in there, some chicken, and then I like to add a bunch of vegetables. But I added mushrooms in the last couple of nights, and I absolutely love them. Big on bell peppers right now, big on mushrooms, and I think they're delicious. So I'm going to keep buying them and keep consuming them. I love it when I come across something where I'm like, whoa. I'm also big on like nutrition bars, snacks like that I can have on the go. And there's been a couple of items I've discovered lately. This brand Legendary, I usually buy them at Target, but they've got like these little rolls, like a cinnamon roll, and then like this, I don't know what it is, like a sticky bun or some type of caramel sticky bun. They're 200 calories a piece. They're absolutely fabulous, and they go really good with a cup of coffee. So I'm all about that right now. I'm on the prowl for different items. But I've discovered this as I've gotten older that vegetables, I've always liked vegetables, but I like them more now than ever. And I'm still going to eat meat, and I like meat for my protein source. But I prefer vegetables and fruits, and I like to try and get as many of those as I possibly can. And what I've been doing lately, and I'm telling you, this has really been helpful for me, but I've boosted my vitamin C intake. I've been doing this now for a couple of years, but I recently just put an uptick. But I'm probably getting, I think I'm going to up it again, but I'm getting, right now roughly around 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day that I have, and then I get additional vitamin C in some of the foods I eat. But I've been increasing my vitamin C intake, and I'm noticing that it's helping with my mood, and obviously with the immune system. And so I'm just going to continue to hammer that too. But I'm always looking for different things. But I like that. As you get older, I've noticed that my taste buds, they change. I don't know if it's like your musical ear where it becomes a little more complex, but I've found that when I open myself up to things that maybe I didn't try before, didn't like, that I enjoy it. There's still things that I think are absolutely gross and make me gag, but I wish I liked them. Like, I'll eat salmon, but I think salmon is overrated. Like, I know out here that's like a blasphemy. Salmon is one of those things that I wish I loved because there's so many great benefits to eating it, but it's not one of my favorite fishes to eat or types of fish. It's okay. I can do it, but it's not like I don't go crazy for it. And I know a lot of people really do. The other thing is tuna fish. I wish I liked tuna fish because there's great nutritional value to it, but the whole tuna thing, unless it's fresh caught tuna that I'm eating in like a sushi roll, I want no part of it. That stuff in the can, how can this is what I don't understand. I thought we were given a nose. I thought bad smells and, weird smells were like a warning sign to us that, yeah, you probably want to stay away from that. It might not be good for you. But that doesn't seem to stop people from eating tuna fish. I just can't do it, man. I've tried. The smell is what kills me. Absolutely kills me. And I'll never forget, I know this guy at the club I used to work at. This is back when in the 90s when tanning beds were huge. Tanning is a lot like smoking, where when it first hit, everyone did it and thought it was cool. And then as time went on, it's like, oh, wait, this might not be good for us. It might increase our chance for cancer. Maybe we shouldn't be lying in a sunbed 5 or 6 or 7 times a week. But, dude, there were people, when I worked at the club over in Vancouver, there were people that come in just to tan, and there were people I knew, they were addicted to tanning. They wanted to look brown. One dude told me that brown fat looked better than white fat, and I'd never really considered that, but I guess, you know what, you might be right about that. But there would be people that would hit the tanning bed like 5, 6, 7 times a week. And there were a couple of old ladies, too, and their faces looked like catcher's mitts. No offense. But it's like, yeah, you're in a tanning bed all day long. What do you expect? And but again, that's what happens when you live out here. We don't have access to natural light, unfortunately. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Oh, yeah. So anyways, this guy, Scott, he's big on tuna fish. He goes into a tanning room, finishes his can of tuna fish. He's eating out of the can, too, by the way, which is just wrong. And he drops it in the garbage can and then leaves after his tanning session. Well, a tanning room is not exactly cold. And so with each session, it was continuing to increase the smell from that tuna fish can. And I give him a hard time to this day. I'm like, dude, I can't believe you dropped that in there. It smelled like death. I just can't do it. So salmon, tuna fish, there's a few other things on the list. And there's certain fruits I like, but if it's too hard if it's messy to open or deal with, I just shut it down. Like I like oranges and I do like grapefruit, but I don't like the process of peeling it. And then when you try to peel it, and then sometimes you rip one of the sides open, it gets all runny, it gets on your fingers. Like I don't like that process. But I don't like to buy fruit that's already pre-sliced or peeled or whatever because they charge more for it. So that's a big problem. But there you go. What else? The one thing I know I'm going to love forever is coffee. And the only time I didn't want coffee was for about 3 or 4 weeks after, once I got COVID, and then after COVID, for about 4 weeks, I was like, yeah, I don't need coffee right now. That's when I knew everything was jacked up. The things I normally loved, I hated. And the things I hated, I was actually, I think I could use some of that right now. I was eating some weird stuff during that whole period, trying to get myself right. But ever since that time a few years ago, I haven't been sick since. I've been pretty healthy. So we'll see. It's also allergy season. I used to take allergy shots, but I stopped taking them. I did them when I was younger. I went to the doctor. They ran like a skin test and all these different things. I was basically allergic to everything under the sun. And eventually I was just like, Mom, can I just please try to not take these shots all the time? And so I haven't. So there you go. I mean, we're talking about everything. Tomatoes, ethanol, everything. I was allergic to everything. But I'm okay. I stopped taking the shots years ago, and I'm okay now. So there you have it. So anyways, I'm probably going to eat some more mushrooms tonight. But looking forward to the weekend. Got the prom tomorrow with my daughter. Taxi Dad's going to run Isaac everywhere and Kaylee everywhere. But that's what I'm here for. But I'm excited for her, and I hope she has a good time. But we have some good things to look forward to. We'll finish up the rest of the NFL draft. We got NBA playoffs, which are hot and heavy. And then we're getting close. We're inching closer to the all-important draft lottery. And that's going to be vital. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but I just have this dream that the Blazers are going to strike gold and that we're going to have a big-time